We are on the iconic Linden Highway and we're heading to Linden, Region 10. We're going to be talking with the regional chairman, Deron, and the mayor of the municipality of Linden, the one and only Sharma about the rehabilitation of this highway, the replacement of the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge, and some allied issues. Come along with us. Regional Chairman, thanks for having us. So we're here in Region 10, and what hasn't happened in a year seems to be happening in a day. A lot of projects seem to be pursued now with great haste. The bridge, the Mackenzie-Wismar Bridge, the Linden Highway, all of that is earmarked to start very shortly. We hear the toll there is going to be free, among other major bridges in our country. And that the road is getting underway. Several things are happening. First, let's start off with the consultation aspect. Has the region been consulted on the free bridge and this road that's going to get underway? And they're talking to about several disruptions that are going to happen. Has the region been engaged in these issues?
Thank you, Shara. Thank you for having me on your program. It's always a pleasure. I know you join us here in Region 10 this time round. And based on what we've seen occurring over the past 72 hours, I should say, I think it's another sign that we are getting closer to general and regional elections. We're seeing a lot of the projects now being expedited as we had predicted. You heard me mention that the government over the years, they seek to say to the country that they are creating this one Guyana narrative, but of course there is a special treatment for Region 10, Region 4, and I know Region 7 is experiencing the same thing. But to answer the question specifically, and I think we need to, of course, for the sake of our young people, and I was able to get some information and I just want to share with them so that they understand the project, how we arrived here, etc. Many of the project, first off, that you see being now expedited through the system were projects that were initiated on concept of the APNU AFC government. Feasibility studies were done under the coalition government. There has been no feasibility study, there have been no consultation, there have been no interaction with this present government and the RDC. And so I want to make that clear. All of the work that are being done, whether it is with the Linden to Mabura, those consultations were had initiated under the coalition government. The Linden-Suzak Highway, the same thing. The name of the company, I think it was SKRN, that did the feasibility study on the Linden-Suzak Highway. And of course you have the bridge across the Demerara River here in Linden. And one understands that when the PPP was asked the question, more so the president, they said they're making up a plan as they go along, because they do not have a plan for development. They do not have a plan of action for regional development. And so I want to make it clear that we welcome these projects because, one, first of all, they are coalition projects. They were initiated during that period, and we are grateful that they are being done. Suffice to say that we have our concerns because most times during my tenure here, most of these projects go to friends, family, and favorite, and they are not being done above board. Many of them, the structural integrity of them are questionable. They quickly become compromised, and so you would have witnessed what happens in the area of roads, bridges, etc. But for our young people, I wanted them to know that back in 1968, it was the PNC that commenced the construction of the Linden-Suzak Highway. And so they laid the foundation for that vital transportation network connecting Regions 4 and Region 10. Again, 20 years after, in 1988, the PNC would have secured funding for the resurfacing of that highway. Upon assuming office in 1992, while the funding was secured and there, the PPP government refused to rehabilitate the Linden-Suzak Highway. And so we are now close to 60 years. It took the coalition government between 2015 and 2020, because of course it was denied for 23 years again. And as soon as we got into office, we ensured that we completed the feasibility study, and we ensured that we started to lay the foundation for these projects to take off. And so in 2018, the feasibility study was completed by SRKN Engineering, and efforts were again made to secure funding for this Linden Highway. Of course, after 4 years of delay, the PPP took office. They delayed the project, and a contract for the upgrading of a 2-lane road, mind you, was signed 2 days ago. Of course,
Region Chairman, I want to pause you there, because when it comes to, for instance, the East Coast Public Road, the public road, not the line, Mr. Jagger in a press conference recently was very adamant that they had already done the studies, they had already laid the foundation basically for that road, and we came in and completed. I want the viewers to understand that in 2018, when these studies were done for this highway, the coalition government, the APNU AFC, were in power. Right? And the PP had 23 years of power before that time.
Yeah. And so they never did any of those studies, because they were never genuinely interested about the social and economic well-being of our people. Particularly Region 10 being an opposition-controlled region and an opposition stronghold. They denied us those transformational projects. And so, while we welcome, I want to make it clear, we welcome the upgrade of the Linden-Suzaik Highway and the bridge, which I will speak of a little later on. We, of course, would have preferred that highway, close to 60 years after, would have been upgraded to a 4-lane highway. One of the things that we are big on in Region 10 and the entire country should be a safety of our commuters. And so we have seen a lot of head-on collision accidents occurring on the Linden-Suzaik Highway. And so we thought that would have been one of the things the government would have ensured. Like just like they're doing the East Bank 4-lane, the East Coast 4-lane, you go over to Region 3, you're seeing these massive highways being done. Only when it comes to Region 10, they will continue to promote a 2-lane. So once that road is completed, you will have a 2-lane with a roundabout going into a 4-lane. You can anticipate the confusion that may likely occur. And so I want to make it clear that while they will be constructing a 2-lane upon the APNU AFC returning to office, we are going to ensure that 2 additional lanes are added, because we believe that traffic should be going in the same direction. It will prevent those head-on collisions and a lot of other things that we have seen occurring over the past couple of years. And so within the first 100 days, we are going to, of course, initiate feasibility study to ensure that our people are safe, that a 4-lane highway is built, and that Region 10 also becomes a part of the real growth and development that the other regions and the country on a whole is benefiting from, particularly those PPP stronghold regions.
Region Chairman, I want to ask another issue related to this one. I think I saw somewhere it being mentioned, may have been with you, that is the abandonment over these 23 years of rehabilitating this road, repairing this road consistently. A lot of deaths were caused needlessly.
A lot of Lindeners and you know, people in Region 10 generally lost their lives. You had a lot of trucks who were responsible for accidents, no lighting, people slamming into them, and so many persons lost their lives. Family members. My brother lost his life on that Linden-Suzaik Highway. So when we speak, it's from a personal. We felt what many of our people went through, and so we know that the economy has grown massively. We are no longer talking about billions. The economy is 5 times that, trillion. There's no reason why the government could not have found money to, of course, improve on the highway and upgrade it to a 4-lane. Again, I said, because they are not interested in my view, the development of Region 10, the safety of our people, we will ensure that in our first year upon returning to office, that these things are looked at, and that we, of course, continue to pioneer these development projects on behalf of the people of Region 10.
I see one of the things being touted here is the amount of jobs that are going to be created when this road comes, during the building of this road, and jobs being created or that were created. Strangely, I heard the president say, refer to the Marriott creating jobs in Region 10 and so on. I wasn't aware we had a Marriott here. He said Marriott at Chameri. I don't know if we a little slow on the geography and so on, but you may be able to shed light, because if memory serves me correctly, a lot of jobs were lost in Region 10 when the PPP came to power.
Of course. So the People's Progressive Party, upon assuming office, they targeted every sector in this region. They targeted the health sector, where they suspended the nursing program. They sent home many of our young people who are now trying to get into the program, while training continued in Region 1 to 9. We, of course, will fix that. We will ensure that we resuscitate the training program for years 1, and of course year 2 and 3 will continue. There are several other programs that they stopped that targeted young people directly. Recognizing during our tenure that we did not want to be totally dependent on the oil and gas sector, we empowered the agriculture sector. We started the farm to market road from Millie's Hideout to the Berbice River. They came in and we invested $300 million. They came into power, they suspended, scrapped the program, and we believe that it was because they wanted our people to be dependent on their support base for food. 70% of our food is imported into Region 10, and so it goes against and it is in cinch, with what I think Ashley Singh said, where other regions had a comparative advantage. And so while we wanted to ensure that we also focus and empower agriculture, not only the oil sector, we recognize what it did to countries like Nigeria. They of course, focused on oil and neglected the agriculture sector, and they quickly recognized that and went back to doing agriculture. And so we incorporated ICT in agriculture. Mm-hmm. We ensure that young people, because we don't want to just teach them it through the traditional measures, a fork, a rake, a spade. If you get them involved in agriculture using ICT and technology, you will captivate them. They came into office, they suspended those programs, sent home, they pulled the agriculture program that was under the regional chairman's office, and of course started to deny us whether we requested technical support for the Berbice River, officers going in, crop extension officers, they refused to fund those programs. We saw the closing of the National Data Management Agency. We will, of course, reopen those programs because we want to ensure that Guyana's information is digitized and is in sync with what is happening in Georgetown, so that you don't have to be traveling down the highway to do simple things like check up on an application for your land or whatever. We saw them suspend the Linden program. $300 million is sitting in an account.
I was coming around to that.
Yeah, we are going to ensure that small businesses, we agree that in any economy, the government and the private sectors are drivers of economic activity. You have a lot of private businesses who are investing. Jobs are created through ideas, creativity, investment into those very ideas. This government has refused to release $300 million in an account that the Granger administration left there, targeting our young people. Many of them who have already shown through their business plan that they have the potential to of course, create jobs, employ people, and drop the unemployment rate. Why would any government who cares that it loves Region 10 or its people in general deny
that kind of
empowerment? And so they have refused to constitute the board there at Linden Enterprise Network. They came, they boasted about the call center. We injected $119 million into the call center, and we were looking at an investor by 2020. Of course, we were cheated out of office. They brought in an investor. I can say to you that 3 years after, while they promised us 300 jobs, if you go there and find 6 people in there, you will find a lot. It has collapsed because, of course, there is no proper structure. And they, of course, are paying our people next to nothing, $2,000. When you had the head for Go Invest going on NCN, lying that young people are being paid $90,000 there. Of course, all of them walked off. We will ensure that the programs that we started under the First Lady, Sandra Granger, the ICT, where we train them and then they transition and we're working at the National Data Management Agency. We ran internet connectivity throughout the Berbice River so that when you touch down in the Berbice River, you could have still been connected. They've refused.
Saw some of that recently.
They've refused to upgrade and maintain the internet access because they do not want our people to have access to credible information coming from credible source and other organizations, media houses. And so we will ensure that we reboot that and ensure that those persons are employed. We will focus on the restructuring and implementation of the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service. Once again, we will empower young people. We had trained 184 of them and they were employed. I know they are talking about the coalition government will send home all of the 10-day workers. I want to make it clear. Our plan, as was done in between 2015 and 2020, is to train, ensure that there is a plan of transition for young people, and then provide permanent jobs for them. It is no different with the 10-day workers. We will ensure that we train you, we will ensure that we employ you permanently, ensure that you have NIS benefits that you're not getting right now, that the government owns you. Right now, no one wants to own the 10-day workers. There's no letter of employment that they have that they can take to an institution or maybe a business like courts. Nobody wants to own them. We will change that and we will increase the numbers of persons that we are training, just like we did in the patient care assistant program where we train and employ, just like we did in all of the other areas. We will ensure that we always have a plan of transition for our young people.
Part of what we saw as well is the importation or the proposed importation of nurses. And we know that Linden was a hub for training quality nurses.
Yeah, so again, upon going to office, they targeted our health workers. They placed a man named there, Rudy Small. You know, we had to picket him. We finally got rid of him. He was, he had to, in essence, pay 20 million back to nurses who he deducted salaries from. And what that did, of course, it led to over 200 of our nurses leaving the region for greener pastures. Imagine people are going to UK, our former colony, to find betterment. That is something that, you know, it's unfortunate. So 200 of our nurses have left. And many continue to leave. We have 30 doctors who are sending in their resignation. 30 of them already going to work with other private companies. And so they targeted every sector. The nurses, we now see them saying that, oh, we didn't have a shortage. There was never a shortage. All of a sudden now you're seeing nurses coming in from Bangladesh. But we believe there's a bigger thing. What they're attempting to do is a population shift. And I want to say to our young people and residents of Region 10 that understand that when these elections are called, it is important that you turn up and you vote and you support a government that will have your best interests at heart. We have our projects that we can put on display. The economy under us was growing at over 45%, positive growth for the 5 years that we were in power, without oil money. We increased teachers' salary, we increased nurses' salaries, we empowered young people. You remember the Linden Music Corps? We started to do those programs. They attempted to close all of those programs, and of course we had to push back in the case of the Linden Music Corps, and we were able to, of course, see them playing at our national and other events. There are many other things that we propose, and we are putting it on record now. The bridging of the Kokwani River, the Berbice River, there at Kokwani. We want to see those projects become a reality, and if this government doesn't do it, the coalition will ensure that it becomes a priority. Public assistance. The 800 persons that were removed, we will put them back on the public assistance program within our first 100 days. We're going to ensure that there's a well-structured program so that those persons who can't help themselves, that 5-year-old boy that suffered from a liver disease that was denied, that senior citizen that his left hand was severed, we will ensure that we reach out to all of those persons and ensure that they are placed back on the nursing program. The house lots for our athletes, young people, we would have allocated house lots to our young people, Shantoba Bright, Daniel Williams, and others were in the line to benefit. This government, despite we recommended it to them, they have refused to act upon that recommendation, and they have denied our athletes access to that, most transformational opportunity for them to own their own home.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things happening. One of the things you always say, Mr. Chairman, is that the PUP, they have not done any transformational projects in Region 10 in Linden. Is that why we see this great haste now? Noting that the road is going to take 2 years, so they'll have to come back to power to finish it off, or we'll have to finish it off. And then there is the issue of the bridge. I saw one commentator said, one analyst say, that the incomes from these bridges could go towards, for instance, raising teachers' pay, raising the pay of nurses as against them being free. Nobody has any trouble being free, but why not fund, improve our teachers' salary, improve our nurses' salary, our policemen, our soldiers, our armed forces?
And again, and I'm happy you raised that point, this is just another political stunt. The PPP is so blatant, and you will hear all of these fancy projects coming and what they plan to do and intend to do. Just look at what they promised the teachers when they were in opposition. They promised 50%. They said they hope the union will bargain for 50%. The president said 25 and up. In their negotiations with the teachers, they didn't even meet that figure. And I want to encourage the teachers to look at the interview that Mr. Kadaki Amsterdam did with former Finance Minister Winston Jordan, and you will get the essence of what occurred. We know it was one of the officials there was compromised based on what he agreed to, but one asks themselves the question, how do you start negotiating at 35 and then 25%? How did you end up at 10%? All right, and so I encourage our teachers to look at that interview. But tolls, and this move again, as I said, is an election gimmick. Tolls are expected, as you know, to provide funds for repair and maintenance. One person on social media asked the question, so it means now that there will be no need for toll workers. I would have jotted some notes down. Not even the great USA provides persons to traverse across the bridge free. Not even America does that. How will these infrastructure be maintained? And so this government is now at a point where it has become increasingly evident, in my view, that the government is growing more desperate in its attempt to sway the opinion of the electorate, particularly undecided voters. But the impeding reality is that they will be voted out of office. It was the president who, in a recording, prophesied, I should say, that in 2025 he would have exited office, and the recording is there. So don't fall for the bluff, people. You will see many more projects coming. They're going to go to the moon and come back. You're going to get cash grant, take the money, because if you don't take it, they're going to thief it. But understand that I believe with the PPP, they distract you with the obvious while they're always doing something behind the scene, and there is always a hidden political agenda. This toll and the removal of fees from these bridges is to benefit merely their friends, families, and favorite. There are a lot of truckers coming in, crossing the bridge, that don't want to pay the 6,000 toll. They don't want to pay the 5,000 to cross the bridge, whether it is the lumber trucks, those fetching the stones to do all the projects that they're doing on the East Bank, etc., the sand trucks. And so what they did is cleverly disguise it to say that, oh, they want to open up these opportunities, remove the toll, so that persons who are going to be crossing, paying a $60. We never had a problem with that because safety comes first. What we want to ensure is that the friends, family, and favorite that we know will benefit more with those fees that they are trying not to pay, they're the ones that we want to target. But the government, again, will force Guyanese to feel as though there is no one Guyana, definitely. So you remove the toll from the Demerara Harbour Bridge, Mackenzie Wisma Bridge, and the Borbies Bridge. Why not, if you're so genuine about your plan, why not do it from the 1st of September? Why you gotta wait until 2 years from now, the bridge complete? Guyanese are pressured, the high cost of living has affected them. Why not implement those measures now among several others?
That sounds as though it is saying, vote back for us so we can complete this bridge and make it free for you.
And we should not, and no one should take that chance, because they have not honored any of their promises that they would have made to the people of Region 10. We saw an agro-processing plant that you had a who and a cry from that came up, big PR stunt. It is locked up. Till now, locked up at Watuka. At Watuka, opposite the Watuka. Nothing happening. Nothing in agro-processing. There is a facility in the Borbies River at Kimbia. Since 2021, we propose that they invest in that agro-processing facility. Nothing. It has left the same way. All of the projects that we started, they suspend. Look at the 5Bs program, right? We put a structured plan in place. Buses, boats, bicycle, breakfast. They came in, they allowed all the buses to deteriorate. All of a sudden now, you're going to hear that these projects are going to become a reality. Do not be fooled. Your best days are under a coalition government, and we will ensure that the wealth of the nation is done in an equitable manner, that all of our people benefit countrywide.
Mr. Chairman, any part in the last 4 years, the PPP just celebrated 4 years in office, has the engagement with the PPP on Region 10 issues been cordial, been professional, been easy to get business done for the people of this great region?
So let me say this. This government does not engage with elected officials of Region 10. And even when they attempt to do a PR stunt or a photo op, the invitation for the signing of the road project, I received it at 5 o'clock the afternoon for the event the next day. And so they do not engage. And they said it. It is the Vice President who said he prefers to meet with people, particularly pockets of people who are connected to them, rather than the elected officials. The same thing is happening with the municipality. They are not engaging with elected officials, and that has been the case since 2020.
Sadly.
And so I do not want to sugarcoat it. They do not have your interests at heart. We were elected here by over 19,000 people to represent them. What they have done is those who would have suffered a democratic blow from the local government elections, when you turn up to functions, you see them sitting in front, and they want to say to the deputy mayor and other officials that there is no seat in front. That's how blatant they have become. And so, do not be fooled with the propaganda. In fact, we have written to the government on several issues affecting the people of Region 10. We have written to them on the construction of a new school at Wizrock, a primary school. To date, we have not received a response. We have written to them on the policy decisions that we took here. It's a hilly sand and clay region. The people asked us to make representation for drains first and then road. They have ignored it because it allows Edgil to come into the region with a PR stunt, do to concrete road. It undermine a week after. Break up.
We've seen that.
And he gets his photo up.
We've seen that.
And so there are many other instances where we reached out to them. Right now, the dialysis machines that we and the agreement that we had at the Linden Hospital complex has been allowed to deteriorate. So now you have patients having to go to Georgetown to do dialysis 3 days a week. It's $45,000 a week. And rather than invest in more machines, they prefer to allow patients with kidney failure to traverse down the Linden-Suzaik Highway so that they can have to go all the way to Georgetown to get treatment. They have not even increased the amount of sessions. So it's only 11 sessions a dialysis patient have that is subsidized. After that, they have to find their own money.
But Mr. Chairman, isn't that the very problem the coalition was trying to solve by bringing the center here and the other places?
Correct.
The passport office that they brought to Linden, decentralizing some of these services, the very thing, and now it's back to square one. You have to travel to Georgetown.
Yep.
That's interesting.
We ensured that the services, because we were building communities, that is why we had branded the Ministry of Communities. So whether it was in infrastructure before it is handed over to a community, you put in the roads, the drains, the lights, water, etc. Just like Burnham did with Wizrock and Amelia's Ward, Brazina's scheme. This government came in, and of course they do things, as the leader said, they flick and hope to land on the feet, and oftentimes they land on the head. And then you heard them say that they're making up the plan as they go along. Now I hear them talking that they will do a people-centered vision. They have never had an original thought or plan in their head. They even stole the One Guyana. One Guyana was an election, a political election campaign slogan of the PNC. And so they think that by pressing the reset button and taking all of the ideas that people are going to forget. To the point where one official said that he built Amelia's Ward, when the people of Linden know that it was Forbes Burnham that built Amelia's Ward. And so they do not have your interests at heart. Many of the projects that you see, we started, the synthetic track can't complete as yet. The Linden to Mabura Road, they frustrated that project. It took the coalition government who submitted the proposal to the UK government and pressure from the UK government to tell them that if you don't proceed with it, we are not leaving the money. And that is how that road became a reality. And many of the other projects, of course, I believe they will only become a reality. Just like the passport office, which created employment, by the way, because it allowed people from within the region to be employed. I mentioned the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service. Why would anyone want to close a program down like that? A well-structured program. And so we are going to bring all of those programs back up. We're going to press the reset button. We're going to ensure that it is done in a transparent manner, in a fair manner. Even with the tender board process here, right now, 70% of all contracts go to people outside of the region. You know why? Because the PPP did not support the nominee that we placed, that we submitted for the tender board. So you may ask how that is so. All 5 members of the tender board were appointed by the PPP. And the 2 names that we submitted, they disregarded the name and picked 2 persons that they know will say yes to everything. And so all of the 70% of the contracts are going to people outside of the region. People coming from Barbies and doing painting. People coming from Region 2 and building Yard Hut. And so that is what has been happening. We will ensure that jobs are given to our people here in Region 10 at Kokwani, because we are a talented people. We have the skill set, we have the knowledge, and we believe that if it is done by people in Region 10, we will get a far better product when we award those projects.
What do you say to those people here in Region 10 who might be getting a little excited and say, oh, them boys working, look, all these things happening. Is this progress, Regional Chairman, finally, or is this just naked raw politics here?
It is political maneuvering. That is what it is. Again, I challenge any of the People's Progressive Party members to speak to one transformational project that has been completed, ribbon cut, handed over to the people of Linden. Just name one that is functioning right now as we speak, and you will find none. I can point to the fact that we, during our tenure, and I have the document here that I would love to share with our people. All right? We ensure that sweeper cleaners who were receiving $25,000 in 2015, that their salary was increased to the minimum wage. At the time it was $65,000. We ensure that we dug wells at Amelia's Ward South so that you can get clean water. You don't want to see a photo of the water that is coming through the taps of our citizens right now in Linden. Somebody says coffee. In 2024, with the biggest budget, 5 times that of the coalition government, and if you see the condition of the water, we ensure that over 1,000 scholarships were given to young people. I have recordings where I can show to you, because they got so confused in targeting Afro-Guyanese that even an African who supported them became a target of their own party, where his sister was locked out from a scholarship program, both before the portal closed and after the portal closed. And she's on record saying that they suspended and blocked many of our young people. During our tenure, we did the Sustainable Livelihood and Entrepreneur Development Program. We did block making factory. We did hair salon. We did PIC projects. We did a lot of other projects that persons benefited from agriculture. And so they suspended all of those projects. You mentioned the passport office, the new Christianberg Primary School, the Bamia Nursery School completed, the Bamia Health Center completed in 4 years.
What about the primary school from Bamia?
Well, that's another story. We started the feasibility study for the primary school. And you know what's sad is that, unfortunately, during our tenure, it went back to tender because the consultancy company had an issue with, they objected to something. So we were not able to start the Bamia primary school. Had we been able to pass that hurdle, I'm sure we would have cut the ribbon within a year, like was the Christianberg School, and hand it over to the people at Bamia. But unfortunately, the school has not yet been completed. 3 or 4 years after, they received about 3 extensions.
Wow.
They want another extension, and still it can't be completed. And so many of the other projects, we did ICT hubs and training. 120 youths were trained at the Data Management Center. We did the 5Bs program. We did the access road to Kokwani. When I first went to Kokwani, it took me 5 hours. Under our government, the road was upgraded and maintained. It took an hour 45 minutes for us to go to Kokwani. We upgraded the Kokwani Workers Club. We did 2 magistrate courts, one at Kokwani and the one here at Linden, and we commissioned them 24-hour electricity during our tenure. We ensured that the generators were installed. All this government did is when they came in, they cut the ribbon to make it appear as the project was their project. Do not be fooled.
I see in the Borbis River there's a wharf struggling there.
Yeah. Right? Despite those submissions were made to them to be upgraded, never funded the wharf at Kimbia, never funded the wharf at Ibini and Develt, all collapsing. And so we did the rehabilitation of the guest house. We did the Watuka guest house with a boardwalk that many of the residents out of out of Linden can come now and have an experience here, kayaking. We invested in the same building that is at Linden here. We did it at Kokwani, up at Starfields. All right, and so the 200 youths countrywide, including youths in Region 10, benefited from the Citizen Security Strengthening Program that was supported by the IDB with Kemra Dram Jatan. 10 indigenous communities here were given access to communication, ICT with tablets. We empowered our people. VAT that the PPP brought to Guyana at 16% was reduced to 14% during our tenure, and we had a commitment to reduce it to 12%. Ask them why, with all the money circulating, they have not even budged in reducing it to 12%. We ensured that a dormitory was built at LTI so that students from the riverine communities and Rockstone can come out and do a program here. Sherrod, it ain't finished yet. While we initiated it, they dragged that program out because why? You want to target the Amerindian community too? Why can't the Amerindians come out and do a course in mechanic or in ICT? Why is it that you have not completed that project? All right, 170 schools received internet connectivity across the country. We ensure, I mentioned the Bertram College of the Public Service. All right, old age pension when we took office was about $9,000 when Granger entered the parliament. By the time we left office, it was over 20,000. All right, and so we ensured that our people were trained. We delivered water ambulance to the Amerindian communities of Malali in the Demerara River and at Wiruni in the Berbice River. They have refused to upgrade the water ambulance. So patients now who have to come out from those riverine communities got to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Did you ever see a photo in 2021 with a patient going to the Kokwani hospital in a wheelbarrow? It is pressure that forced them to put an ambulance in Kokwani because while we would have budgeted for it in 2020, they refused. I remember completing a report in 2021, and this is what they did. And in that report, and the leader of the opposition was there, the people of Wiruni, which is the midway point for the Berbice River, said, Chairman, we would like to have a secondary school built at Wiruni. While we did the doctor's quarter and a health center at Wiruni, and we had plans to do all of this, of course we left office. They came in, we submitted the report to them. 2021 passed, 2022 passed, 2023 passed. You know when they decided to build, to start the secondary school at Wiruni? 2024, when it's possibly an election year, when they had that report on their desk since 2021. Mm-hmm. We ensured that when we came to office, we started lighting up the Linden Suzaik Highway, Burnham Drive, Casarina Drive, Winifred Gaskin Highway. They refused to maintain those infrastructure work that was done under Public Works. We started an RDC building at Spikeland for the past 4 years.
Making representations, I would understand.
They refused. They said, we ain't got time with RDC building and them thing. There's a low priority. But the people who are under their direct employ are supposed to work in an environment where sewage is backing up and coming. They talk about us not having the interest of people that are during COVID. Think about it. Had we not completed that COVID center at Liliendal, at the time when we left office, you had just about 20 deaths. Despite we built this center for them and handed it to them and provided all the oxygen never been in there, the paraphernalia. Mm-hmm. Deaths increased from 20 to 1,000 and something.
Sadly.
Nurses didn't have equipment, paraphernalia to work with. And so, do not be fooled. We built 2 new police stations. We completed the one at Mackenzie and we started the one at Wismore. Of course, it was finished under them and they had the opportunity to cut the ribbon. But for 23 years, police officers worked under the most inhumane conditions. And so do not be fooled. We renovated the senior citizens home at Retrieve, the Darfolk home. You know what they did? Upon coming to office, they throw the old people, the senior citizens, sorry, craft out of the facility. And while they promised them to outfit it with the necessary equipment, etc., they refused. 4 years onward, nothing has happened at the Darfolk home in Retrieve. And so, do not believe them. None of the playgrounds or the facilities, the bleachers at Christianburg. 3 years ago, the stanchion for the lights came. They were supposed to put it up at Christianburg, Kamaka, and Spikeland. Sherrod, 3 years after, the one at Christianburg still on the ground, the one at Spikeland in the air but no lights on it.
These are the people that care.
Yeah. At Kamaka that they like to run into and say that we love Kamaka. If you see the condition of the play field, not a single project under youth, culture and sports has been completed by this government. And so I believe that they do not have your interests at heart. The only way we can get to continue all of those projects that we left, that they have failed to complete, is by you going out in your large numbers and of course voting solidly for the coalition government.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm meeting you on the ground again. The last
Yes.
time I was here, you were on the ground looking at flood issues. This afternoon, we're at a particular site in Linden.
Yes.
Mayor Sharma Solomon. Tell us where we are and what's happening here, because we're talking about the challenges in Region 10,
Certainly.
challenges in Linden. Talk to us.
Well, first, thanks, Sherrod, for coming to Linden. As usual, we welcome the opportunity to be able to express views that we are not able to do so nationally. As persons know, we're restricted from access to the media, NCN in particular, and even access for more media to get into Linden. So we welcome Credible Source. But today we're in my constituency, Constituency 1, Bami Amelia's ward. And as you saw me the last time in my constituency, even though mayor, I am very committed to the residents in the constituency to ensure that we bring to them what we promised last year, right, proper, strong representation. So I'm walking the constituency. This is at the Amelia's Ward dorms, student dorms, that accommodates students from across Region 10. This dorms is now under repairs. Imagine.
Now as in
school-
2024 now, or now as in this month, this week now?
This would be 2 days ago. A contract was given for this dorms. School is opening on Monday, the 2nd. And here we are right now in this facility that is to accommodate 70 students from across the riverine communities. Now, the question should be asked a few things. First, for those children that are our number one priority, where will they go? How will they be accommodated, and how soon will they be accommodated for the new school year? Now, this dorm accommodates students from as far as 1 to 5th form. So even those students that are now coming into high school and those students preparing for CXC are going to have this sort of disruption for the first academic year, 2024. So we hear many times about the taking care of our children and the priority, but I think we can see for ourselves the sort of interest, because in 1 week, this is expected to complete. 1 week, and was only given 2 days ago. The contractor have already said that is impossible. So upfront, I'm asking parents, I'm putting the community on alert that we'll have to make some necessary provisions. The municipality is going to take an interest in that. We have a few facilities that we've already been using. And these are some of the things that other stakeholders we welcome to ensure that we provide alternative accommodation for these children. But before we can get there, I hope the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education, is going to see this as something that should be dealt with expeditiously.
Mr. Mayor, this is interesting because quite recently I heard that some of the bad results they may have had with CSEC and other subject areas might have been because the teachers were on strike and kids were out of school. You're going to be putting kids out of school here if we don't act quickly.
Well, you know, the thing is, this particular facility accommodates many of our indigenous brothers and sisters across the region from many of those Amerindian communities that do and excel in their grade 6 especially. And to think that we have those very vulnerable children who are in need of accommodation, who many times, if they don't have this, many times pay over $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to be accommodated, if not by family, by strangers. So I think that in itself, we can talk about the teachers' strike, but just the interest in children by the basic provision that is there. You are saying the strike was on. It means then it was more than 2 months of the holidays that this facility should have been started. This is a facility that was in the budget. And even as we talk about administrators being competent enough to ensure that these contracts go out on time, not only for the holiday season, but for the season those teachers were on strike, this facility should have started and by now completed so that we don't have to question how we are going to ensure those children don't have learning time loss.
Excellent. Let's shift a little at a different spot for the other aspect of our discussion. I know the guys are going to give us a drone shot of what's happening behind us.
Oh, you got a drone.
But Mr. Mayor, lots of things happening in Region 10, lots of things happening in your township. And I I'm hoping that the municipality, I've spoken to the regional chairman who says they have not been consulted, but maybe you can tell us if what we're hearing, the bridge toll is going to be, the bridge is going to be free once a new bridge is being built. I think I heard you say that, for instance, the PPP has been working to kind of embarrass and a number of other things, a number of other additives you would have used, the folks here in Linden. And I want you to talk to us about some of the challenges you would have had. I know during the local government campaign, they would have said that they are going to work with the municipality, whoever wins, and all of that kind of stuff. So talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges you may have had. I know there's the Linden Highway is going to be rehabilitated. That leads into your township.
Certainly,
Talk to us about all of those issues.
You know, we live on this as our 1 year, a couple weeks ago, came and went. And we branded our vision for this town to move in that direction, Linden, the heart of Guyana. This is not where we hope to see Linden. This is where Linden is positioned to be, not only on the geographics and the geographical positioning of Linden, but also the opportunities within the community, whether in the economics, for the prosperity of manufacturing, for tourism, for all the different sectors. Linden is the heart of Guyana. So to see these infrastructure being put in place, whether that's the infrastructure for the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, whether that's the infrastructure of the Wisma to Mackenzie Bridge, or even the infrastructure to have the Linden to Lethem corridor properly put in place. None of this, Sherrod, is new. And this is why I want persons to understand Linden, the heart of Guyana, is where we see Linden has been positioned to fit into the national agenda since in the 70s, that these initiatives are not new. These initiatives were always there in terms of having the Linden to Lethem corridor, to having the proper access to ensure that the Linden to Soesdijk Highway, which is a highway over almost 60 years old, a highway built with almost $60 million. So even to those sort of developments that we saw since in the 70s, were built with consideration of an expansion to ensure that Linden is seen as the heart of Guyana. Now, how do we see that? In terms of those infrastructure and in terms of how it relates to the development of the community. We've already seen on the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, for example, communities that are emerging. And even the government is investing into Silica City and other communities. We've recognized in the Ministry of Housing and in Central Housing and Planning at the local Building Expo that we recently had, have said that in terms of expansion of the 60,000 house lots on file, on record, you can only expand within Region 3, 4, and 5 almost up to the Conservancy. So Linden itself becomes your next available option when you talk even of housing and housing development. So these infrastructure that we talk about, for example, the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, though we recognize even in the 70s and currently the demand to see an upgraded highway, and even with, unfortunately, the many deaths and accidents, the cry for that highway, I think what becomes most important, because it becomes such a critical feature to the artery of making Linden the heart of Guyana and to where that sort of expansion to development fits in, the design becomes very important. And I think as we look at 160 plus million, as opposed to a 60-year-old highway, where you invested just about 60 million when the Canadians built it, we hope to see a design that takes into consideration that sort of rapid expansion, where you now have 1,000% of trucks moving aggregates in and out of the region, with the massive infrastructural advancement across the country. You have now more demand for sand, laterites. So for us, the design becomes a very critical aspect of understanding this new phase of upgrade for the Linden Soesdijk Highway. We hear about all the roundabouts, we hear about all the lights. Those are impressive things to come, but the design becomes most important when we talk about this sort of advancement for Linden, for where we see the growth and development, and for where we see the sort of need for advanced highway to accommodate that sort of growth and development. And we have not seen that. And this becomes our concern. Why it is our concern? Because, as I mentioned earlier, welcoming these developments as far as they were part of the national development strategy coming out of the 80s, coming out of the 70s, even into the 90s, it is only these days we're not seeing development strategies, Sherrod. What we are seeing are pitch-patch, garbage bin type of policies being put together. So even as we look at the infrastructure of the Linden to Lethem, the bridge, the Linden to Soesdijk, we are not seeing the sort of supporting documents. And I'll give you the Linden, the Mackenzie to Wismar Bridge. To date, even though a contract was signed, we don't know what the bridge is going to look like. There is no design. There is no technical design. You cannot, in a very schematic way or pictorial way, see what the bridge is going to look like. We're still waiting on that, even after a contract and civil works have started in terms of the alternative road. We still don't know what the bridge is going to look like. So that sort of development, though we welcome development, we can understand where when we see the sort of, spontaneous gaffes, if we put it that way, of a bridge without seeing the design. Spontaneous gaffe of you will not pay without understanding not only the design, but any other implication in terms of policy. And what does that mean? Because obviously a bridge will have to be maintained. Obviously a bridge will have to be repaired. And to now make that decision without proper policies as to the competency policy to understand the capacity of the Ministry of Works, that is going to be the agency that will now have to manage these bridges to maintain, to repair, to ensure that they are taken care of. So that sort of decision to make without understanding if we have the ability to do and the means to get it done becomes more like an election gaffe. And it is that sort of gaffe we need to avoid, engage stakeholders such as the municipality, so we can have a proper conversation to understand implication, to understand implementation, and to understand how stakeholders are not only going to manage, but mutually benefit from these infrastructure within the communities. I think that sort of behavior from government, we hope to see a change if they want to understand that communities are the first line of the development that they want to propagate. And, you talk about it's a continuous conversation.
Yes. We talk about challenges we have in the township.
Yeah, well, we know about the challenges. And I think because we understand that this government's unwillingness in many ways to abide by rules, laws, and regulations, and we hold firm to that, we still look forward to a government to understand that in Article 13, that they have to relate, that they have to consult and engage. We hope that the government could understand in line with 2801 that they have to work and relate with municipalities. So we look forward for that. But we also are not unaware of what we see before us. A government that is making it difficult for resources to come by the council. A government that is not prepared to work total in terms of meaningful consultation that is provided for in the Constitution for councils and government central to engage on. So those sorts of things, though we would hope and look forward in line with Constitution, the government's actions are not in line with those that they propagate. But nevertheless, Sherrod, over the past several weeks, and I can say for the 1 year of this council, we have taken on the third principle, where government is not stepping in, where the council doesn't have the amount of resources. We will come back to the people, and I think that's why you can appreciate even the mayor is walking in his constituency and engaging on issues that are affecting not only residents across Linden, but across the region, when we can have our children not being able to come to the Amelia's Ward dorms. And that principle of working with communities, Sherrod, have gotten us a lot of not only support, but the involvement of the community to be prepared to work to ensure that we develop the things that we have to develop. And we've done quite a few in terms of garbage waste management, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social initiatives to work with communities to ensure that we get into those areas, to work with seniors, to work with young people. And those are the sort of engagements so far that have bear the sort of fruits that have gotten Linden to the point we are. So we understand the challenges, not only at that level, but even in the municipality as it relates to governance and what the government, in terms of imposing a PPP-appointed town clerk, is deliberate to do, in that the work of the council, though stymied and is being done, it comes at the consequence of ensuring more could be done for you, the people of Linden. So understand in December when the council was at local government ministry picketing, saying to Linden that the imposition of the clerk that we currently have is to do two things: to undermine the work of the council, and wherever resources are, to ensure that it is provided for friends and families of the PPP. And no other time we could have recognized that than during the Linden Town Week celebrations, when the entire week of activities were almost sold to our Brishangai Major for $345,000. And now we had the council who held the event and made over $10.5 million. So those are the sort of things that we're combating with the imposition of a PPP-appointed clerk, but more so the work of the council. Many of the decisions, over 70 decisions and recommendations, have not been implemented by the clerk and further affects the people of Linden.
Yeah, in this very community we're in, Mr. Mayor, we're learning that some streets were done, some were left.
Yes.
Because of who might be living on those streets.
I'm certain, you know, I remember while I was at the University of Guyana, I think it was that long, or while I was working in Georgetown. This is quite some time. I think Minister Ben was Minister of Public Works then, and he had not cleared a trench in front of Freddie Kisoon.
Yes, yeah,
and
yeah.
It was so
infamous.
It was so petty that to think public officials who are entrusted, and I am one myself, to act without fear or favor, you know, without affectionate or ill will, to have that sort of vindictive behavior, then at the Works Ministry, continue even under a different minister, demonstrates that it is the culture of the People's Progressive Party. So I've lived in a street, my home, has been in Amelia's Ward, especially this area, before any home. It's the first home, even before this school was in place. And the streets over the period have been done, and of recent they're upgraded. My street is the only street not done over the past 4 years, 5 years proper. So you can see the matrix of streets done, and my street, along with another woman who closely connected to somebody within the party of the PPP, but no longer is, did not get her street or the portion in front of her done. So that is the sort of government. But I'll say further to this. We run campaigns, Cheryl, we run elections. I can tell you, some of my neighbors in the street, I can say more than half voted for the People's Progressive Party. And I think it just goes to show that the sort of vindictive and pettiness and petty behavior doesn't only hurt the people they don't want to lend support to, but hurts their own supporters. And it shows the sort of behavior of a government who is even prepared to hurt their supporters, what sort of mentality that they're perpetrating in the Guyanese society. So, but again, Sherrod, so two things, not only their own supporters. My house is the third house in the street, and it's closest to the very good streets that were completed. So the selfish behavior that one can take is to say, I am okay, and don't speak about it. But what is most important, it is not only as the position of mayor, it is the position of citizens that when public officials can behave so petty and vindictive, they must be called out by every citizen, no matter political party, because we're all suffering at the moment.
It's interesting because we saw this replicated just recently at Dazzle Housing Scheme on the East Coast, where a woman said she made representation to the ministry to have the streets done. The streets are being done, but unfortunately, the street that she's on, some hardcore activists for APNU, PNC live on those streets, and so her street wasn't done. 22 streets, that's a housing scheme. They are the 11th. Every other street has been done, but 11th street. As you said, this is the pettiness of the politics of the people.
Bottom line.
Thank you very much for listening. Folks, that's going to do it for us at this end from the Linden Soesdijk Highway. We hope you had a chance to share the live, smash that emoji button, folks, and partner with us as well. Until our next broadcast, that's our time.